There's no worse feeling when you discover you've been taken for a mug. Now, I know because of my good nature, I've been taken for a mug once or twice.
I'm
And
sorry
despite
about
the
that.
experience, yeah, no, not you, not yet.
Yeah,
And despite the experience, the mixture of disappointment, anger at myself,
yeah,
and shame never gets any less.
yeah.
It doesn't diminish. Now, these times never left me that much financially worse off. What
Mm,
really got to me was that sense of betrayal.
mm,
That's what really
yeah.
upset me. I imagine that same sense of betrayal that is coursing through the veins of US President Donald Trump at the moment
Mm,
by the NATO nations. What with Starmer refusing access to air bases so airplanes could refuel,
mm,
so as not to have to make 17-hour sorties at the initial stages of the Iran conflict, to the most recent of Spain refusing to send HIMARS launchers to the Middle East to help with the US-Israeli cause. Some would call it a bit of a shit show. So now that Donald, at least for the rest of his tenure of president of the US, has to reanalyze the relationship between his country and the alliance.
yeah.
So what does he do? Break away from it altogether? Be like other member states, modernize and become delinquent? Remember the delinquent bit?
Yes.
Yeah, not paying anything in. Be more aggressive so that member states modernize their military. For sure, Britain was made a laughing stock with the MHS Dragon debacle.
Mm,
US War Secretary Pete Hegseth seemed to say it best about the situation in play at the moment when he said on Tuesday at a Pentagon briefing, he said, a lot has been shown to the world about what our allies will be willing to do for the US when we undertake an effort of this scope on behalf of the free world.
mm,
He was arguing that the missiles in Iran pose no threat to the US, but indeed did for the Western nations who just ummed and ahed when the US called them up for assistance.
mm.
He went on, the president is pointing out that you don't have much of an alliance if you have countries that are not willing to stand with you when you need them. And Marco Rubio, US Secretary of State, said similarly that the US will now have to re-examine its membership with NATO
Mm.
when the conflict in Iran draws to a close. He said, if NATO is just about US defending Europe if they're attacked, but then denying us basing rights when we need them, that's not a very good arrangement, he said. He said that's a hard one to stay engaged in. It looks like there will be some changes, I
Mm.
think. This is me speaking now.
Yes.
And as Starmer is clutching at straws, looking to try and forge an alliance with the EU bloc states to try and cobble together an EU military force,
Yeah.
the big bad wolf in Russia, Vladimir Putin, must be licking his lips.
Oh,
I say that at the last bit, and not because I think Putin's going to attack Europe,
yeah.
but all the nations are saying that he's going to attack Europe. So,
Yeah.
you know, you have to base it on that.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, okay. Right. Um, I mean, we've said, I think, over many of our podcasts, and again, indeed, many of us have thought it over many years that effectively NATO is the US, in all but name. Yeah, we sort of he's the big boy, and then we'd accuse the US of being a bully boy and everything else. Yeah, we want you to pay for everything, and wanted them to be a sugar daddy, in
Yeah,
effect.
yeah,
Yeah, and suddenly, and this served political things for years, and probably served the US in the past as well. Um, don't forget the US. I mean, people say the US doesn't actually owe Europe anything. Just what would people say? I mean, they've come in, they've got involved in what is effectively a European war twice, but we paid them. for that as well. Don't forget, 2006, the UK paid off the Lend Lease. So the US even then didn't come in and do it out of the goodness of their heart. They came in and saved us at a price. Yeah, we got, yeah, I mean, yeah, my great uncle died on an American built ship. Not was American fault, but he got torpedoed. So yeah, the way I look at it now, in more recent times, remember whenever, and let's be honest, it's not Trump wasn't the first one to stand and be laughed at by certain European leaders, the first president. Yeah. And he's the one you didn't laugh at. They did it in the first tenure over something that was probably, well, partly NATO related about the oil, Russian oil.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and it's on video and they laughed in his face. And I remember watching that thinking, okay, you can accuse then Trump of being impetuous, other things. He was making a point about the payments. He was making a point, yeah. He looks at balance sheets. He's a businessman, not a politician.
Of course, yeah, that's right.
And he looks at balance sheets. And that is what businessmen do. They look at the balance sheet. Sometimes they might do something for a little bit of a loss lead, loss lead. Yeah. But as he said, when he'd done something, and it's absolutely true, the oil situation in Europe is actually SFA to do with the US now.
That's right.
The US isn't even a member of OPEC. As far as I know, I understand. I mean, I'm still trying to get my head around that I live in a country now that can put oil out the ground and it's still subject to the tariffs or the prices set by the world stage. Yeah. So fuel prices have gone up where I live. And yeah. And so Trump is saying, has gone round and said, well, when I asked for help or lead, and he didn't ask for, okay, he didn't ask for physical military assistance on the ground in the region.
Marcus planes.
Yeah. On land that he's actually leasing or agreement, or part of the agreement to save Europe was to have these bases available. So actually, I mean, okay, it was a nicety to ask Europeans if they suddenly decided to fly a load of F-15s into a base. I don't know what any sovereign country could do about it. Probably could claim theoretically an invasion, but so be it. But yeah, he is a guy who negotiates, and part of his negotiation now is, you know, you didn't help me when I needed it. I've helped you for 60, 70 years against a perceived threat, in effect, yeah, that didn't actually materialize. Whether or not Russia would have been able to do anything without the US being involved in NATO or not, yeah, that's a big what if of history. I think there's an ideology coming through, possibly organised from Russia. It'll be a bit like saying, well, yeah, I don't think Russian tanks were ever going to cross the border, even in the height of the Cold War, because of different factors and logistics, and yeah, it would be an impossible task for Russia to achieve. I'm sorry it's come to it, yeah. But yes, it comes down to everyone wanted the US to do the dirty work when required, to do the graft.
Do the heavy lifting.
Yeah, do the heavy lifting, take the criticism in the UN and other places. The so-called, and I'm going to focus in on the UK. I'm not particularly interested in what Spain are up to or other countries. That's up to them.
Although it's important to point out that
Yeah.
countries like Spain and Italy and France,
Yeah.
they may be a contributing factor in the future.
Yeah.
Depending on what Trump decides to do.
Well, okay. I mean, is it being pushed now towards a more a European force, which was muted years ago?
That's what Starm is trying to do now.
Yeah. Okay, Britain would be a major player, as you said. France would be a major player.
But will they? Because Britain, look,
Yeah,
like I said in this
yeah,
preamble here,
yeah.
Britain showed itself to be a not to rob the words from from NATO,
Mm.
right? But a paper tiger. It's just got nothing there. The king has got no clothes.
Yeah, but I don't think the UK is the only country. That's where I'm getting to this. The UK is the only country in Europe to be like that. I mean, France
No, it
probably.
isn't. I'm afraid it isn't.
No, I mean, Germany would.
Germany's in dire straits.
Yeah. The only credible country I can think about would be France. Credible. I'm not saying brilliant. Um, but
Yeah, I think you'd have to look at Poland.
I was going to say I mean, when you see the,
They're up to date. They're up to date.
yeah, the Polish, yeah, the Polish are ready, willing, and able. I mean, I've seen some videos, I've seen other things. However, they've managed to get it, and they're used to fighting. If so, like Russia were to do anything, they're used to fighting in the terrain that Russia and doing a Russian type war with Russia. Yeah, they would be very good at guerrilla war. Um, I would say the British military could probably still the soldiers down to the soldiers on the front line, committed soldiers on the front line, with very little could possibly put up a strong fight. Okay, I'm patriotic. Accuse me of being romantic. Possibly the numbers would tell, but it isn't always about numbers. It's about understanding the battlefield and being able to, yeah, do logistics and be able to
Well,
have the train.
with all the makeup wearing high heeled men,
Well, I don't think they're in.
I'm not gonna put bet my last pound on that.
Well. I mean, there is a bit of a story. There is a bit of a different story from yeah, from the ground as well. Um,
Yeah.
and yeah, it's to end up here, to end this really. I don't blame Trump at all. I'm not very happy about the situation. Um, I've never believed there's really been this. I'm going to talk the UK. Never believed since probably the 1980s about any particular special relationship we've had with the US. I think the closest we could have come to it again, would have been with Trump, because Donald Trump, he likes the UK, or he likes the people in the UK. I feel like, I feel it, if he saw a UK person in the street in the US, he'd probably be happy, make a fuss a bit. Um, and I mean, he's making very warm um, noises or speech about the visit of King Charles.
The king, that's right.
Yeah, I mean, um, he's he's having to go at Starmer, but it's almost like, yeah, it's a bit strange in American, given the history, warmly welcoming the King of England there and see him as a bit of somebody who could actually patch up some differences. I think his attitude is that probably um, Prime Minister Starmer isn't going to be around for much longer. Um,
Neither of the two are.
yeah,
Neither of the two are.
no,
You know, Starmer for sure is not going to get re-elected, and Trump he can't get re-elected. So
yeah, yeah. I mean, he'll have. I mean, if it goes over to the way it would seem to be going, he'll get one of his proteges, or
yeah, of
one of
course,
his
and I'm
proteges will
sure
get elected.
I'm sure Starmer will as well.
Um, I mean, I do agree. I mean, yeah, Europe can't roll over every time the USA jump, but
Yeah,
yes, to not support in something where we do have whether or not you agree with
it's a
removing.
it's a vested interest.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't like to see anyone killed. I would like to or strikes on anywhere, we know that Iran was a problem with terrorism, apart from anything else.
Yeah.
And the way they're behaving with the states around him. I mean, Trump doesn't need Europe. He's got ready, willing allies in the region, starting with Israel.
Mhm.
Okay, it's a joke, yeah. And yeah, I mean, okay, Israel is possibly an unofficial state of the US, or it's the US unofficial state of Israel, but yeah. Um, but the two since 1948 have been hand in hand. Don't forget they've had their arguments. Um, but yeah, Iran have managed to make some enemies in the region as well, who are
Yeah.
natural allies to Trump as well. He doesn't really need Europe anymore. What he's saying is, if you want your oil, go and sort out the problem there. It's not my
Yeah.
problem anymore. NATO have not stood by him. I don't think that's come from necessarily the head of NATO. I think that's come from individual heads who, for some reason,
States, which is exactly what Rubio said.